The fluorescent lights of the ER hummed a tune I knew all too well, a low, constant drone that vibrated right through your bones. It was the soundtrack to controlled chaos. My shift had just started, but the night was already thick with the smell of antiseptic and fear. I'm Dr. Alex Renner, and this is my world. Most nights are a blur of broken bones and fevers, but tonight felt different. The air was heavy, charged with something I couldn't quite put my finger on. Then the call came in. MVA, multiple vehicles, one critical. The paramedics rolled in a young woman, maybe early 20s. Jane Doe, no ID, no phone. She was unconscious, her face a mess of cuts and bruises. But it was her stillness that got to me. It was too quiet, too absolute. We hooked her up to the monitors, the rhythmic beeping a stark contrast to her silence. Her vitals were all over the place. We were losing her. I started running the codes, calling out orders. My team moved like a well-oiled machine, each person knowing their part. The crash cart, the intubation kit, the paddles. It's a dance you learn, a violent ballet to cheat death. We worked on her for what felt like an eternity, the clock on the wall mocking us with its steady pace. Every time we thought we had her back, she'd slip away again. Her heart was fighting, but it was a losing battle. Just as I was about to call it, a flicker. A weak but steady rhythm appeared on the monitor. We'd pulled her back from the edge. A collective sigh of relief filled the trauma bay, but it was short-lived. Now, the real work began, figuring out what was wrong. Her head CT was clear, no internal bleeding we could see, but something was keeping her down, a mystery locked inside her silent body. I found myself back at her bedside hours later, long after the adrenaline had worn off. The ER had quieted down, but her room was an island of tension. I looked at her face, trying to piece together who she was. A small faded tattoo of a sparrow was on her wrist, a tiny detail in a sea of medical equipment. Who was waiting for her? Who was wondering where she was? These questions haunted me more than the medical puzzle she presented. That's when Nurse Miller, a veteran who'd seen it all, handed me a small zipped plastic bag. "Found this tucked into her jacket lining," she said. Inside was a worn, folded piece of paper. It wasn't a letter or a note. It was a drawing. A child's drawing, crude but full of color. A smiling stick figure family under a bright yellow sun. At the bottom, in messy crayon letters, it said, "Mommy, Daddy, and me." My gut clenched. This wasn't just a Jane Doe anymore. She was a mother. Suddenly, the fight to save her became deeply personal. It wasn't just about a patient in Bay 4. It was about getting a mom back to her kid. The weight of that drawing felt heavier than any medical chart. I knew I couldn't give up. Not now. I ordered another round of tests, more specific this time. We were looking for something rare, something hidden. A toxic substance? A neurological condition triggered by the trauma? We were shooting in the dark. The hours crawled by. I drank stale coffee, stared at lab results until my eyes burned, and kept going back to her bedside, as if my presence alone could will her to wake up. Around 3 a.m., a police officer showed up. He was young, looked tired. "Anything on our Jane Doe, Doc?" he asked. I shook my head, showing him the drawing. His expression softened. "We're running prints, checking missing persons reports. Someone's got to be looking for her." He left, and the silence he left behind was even louder. The entire hospital felt like it was holding its breath. Then, a breakthrough. One of the talk screens came back with a flag. It was a weird one, a rare chemical compound, not something you see from a typical overdose. It was a component of a specific industrial-grade solvent. This wasn't an accident. This was something else entirely. Where would she have come into contact with something like that? The mystery deepened, twisting into something darker. With a potential cause, we could start a targeted treatment. We began the chelation therapy immediately, a slow process of filtering the poison from her blood. It was a long shot, but it was the only shot we had. All we could do was wait and hope her body was strong enough to fight. I stood there, watching the machine do its work, feeling utterly powerless. As the first light of dawn started to break, painting the sky in shades of gray and pink, her eyelids fluttered, just once. I thought I'd imagined it. I moved closer, my heart pounding in my chest. "Can you hear me?" I whispered. "Squeeze my hand if you can hear me." And then I felt it. A faint, weak pressure against my fingers. It was the most beautiful thing I'd ever felt. She was coming back. Slowly, but she was coming back. The sparrow on her wrist seemed a little more vivid, a symbol of hope. The officer came back later that morning. They'd gotten a match on her prints. Her name was Sarah. Her husband had reported her missing 12 hours earlier. Frantic. He was on his way. He didn't know about the drawing, about the child waiting. When her husband arrived, he was a wreck. I met him in the family waiting room. I told him everything, the accident, the poison, the fight we'd all been through. When I gave him the drawing, he broke down completely. She was coming home, he sobbed. She was coming home from her studio. It turned out she was an artist, a sculptor. She used all sorts of materials, including industrial solvents, to clean her tools. It was a tragic freak accident. A spill, a moment of carelessness in her rush to get home to her family. Later that day, I walked past her room. Sarah was awake, her husband holding her hand, both of them crying and talking in low whispers. The stick figure drawing was taped to the wall next to her bed. It was a simple, colorful beacon of what mattered most. Walking out of the hospital and into the cool evening air, the hum of the city felt different. It wasn't just noise anymore. It was a collection of stories, of lives intersecting in the most unexpected ways. Nights like these, they stay with you. They remind you that behind every chart, every injury, every beeping monitor, there's a person. There's a story. And sometimes, if you're lucky, you get to help write a better ending. My shift was over, but the story of Sarah, the artist, the mother, would walk with me for a long, long time. Thanks for listening.